Padre Pio's last revealing meeting with the Virgin Mary. Have you ever stopped to think about what can happen in the final moments of our lives? Have you ever wondered what it would be like to receive a direct message from heaven, such a profound revelation that changes everything you believe about life, death, and the future? What if this vision were so powerful that not only revealed divine secrets, but also deeply touched his soul? Today, let's get to know the last and most revealing vision of the Holy Father Pio, a vision granted directly by the Virgin Mary. And what she has revealed can transform her life. Subscribe to the channel now, activate the bell and stay until the end so as not to lose any details of this inspiring and exciting story. Today we will plunge into one of the most impressive and moving chapters of Father Pio's life. This man, known for his extraordinary spiritual gifts, has lived a life of sacrifice, dedication, and intense spiritual struggle. Now imagine the end of this journey, a moment when the body, already weakened by the years of suffering, seems to no longer stand. And then, in the midst of this agony, something absolutely divine happens. But before we reveal this view, think for a moment. What would you do if you knew that in the last moments of your life a heavenly revelation was granted to you? It wouldn't be an experience that could change everything, not just for you, but for everyone around you? This is exactly what happened to Padre Pio. He lived a life marked by deep and incessant spiritual combat. From an early age, he was chosen to carry a grand mission, and his stigmas, the wounds similar to those of Christ, were the living testimony of his sacrifice and complete union with the suffering of the Savior. It was a night like so many others in the small quarter of Padre Pio in the monastery. But at the same time, this would be the most special night of your life. His body, weakened by years of struggle against disease, was tired, but his soul was still strong, supported by an unshakable faith. From a young age, Padre Pio had faced spiritual battles, and now he was in total surrender to God. His intense prayers were the way he offered everything he had for the good of souls. The stigmas he carried in his hands, feet, and side continued to bleed. These visible signs of their union with Christ were more than simple wounds. They represented both the physical and spiritual pain that Father Pio endured for Christ. Each drop of blood was a silent offer, a sacrifice accepted by God. Padre Pio had become a living example of someone who embraces the cross without complaining, without resisting. And that night, after so many years of service, something extraordinary was about to happen. In the midst of his prayers, something began to change. The simple and austere room he was in was filled with an intense, almost blunt light. Father Pio, who always had a unique spiritual sensitivity, knew that this was not a common light. She brought with her a deep peace, a presence that transcended any human understanding. It was then that he heard a soft and familiar voice. It was Mary, the mother of Jesus. The figure of Mary and her heavenly blue cloak. Maria's figure appeared wrapped in a heavenly blue cloak, radiating a serenity that transcended any earthly description. His presence, so pure and immaculate, filled the room with a heavenly light. Padre Pio, already used to spiritual visits, immediately acknowledged that this moment was something far beyond the ordinary. In a deep state of humility, he tilted his head, but soon heard the sweet words of the Mother of God. "My son," Mary started, with a voice that mixed love and tenderness, "I come to you with news that will change everything." Imagine what must have gone through Padre Pio's mind at that moment. After a lifetime of sacrifices, suffering for Christ's sake, now he would receive a direct message from the Savior's mother. Mary continued, "Your life of sacrifice was pleasant in the eyes of God, and soon you will be next to Him in glory. I walked with you in every step of your journey, and today I want to share something unique with you." These words, coming from their own Holy Mother, brought an indescribable peace to the heart of Father Pio. What could be such a special revelation? What more Maria could show her after a life full of visions and manifestations divine? At that moment, time seemed to stop. All around Father Pio disappeared, and he was completely immersed in Mary's heavenly presence. There was no pain, there was no suffering anymore. There was only one peace from heaven. Now, before we continue this extraordinary story, imagine yourself in the place of Padre Pio. What would you do if, at the end of your life, the Virgin Mary revealed him secrets hidden over heaven and the future? Continue to us, because the revelation that Maria brought Padre Pio goes far beyond what you can imagine. Subscribe now to the channel, enable notifications, and prepare for the divine revelation that is about to be unraveled. The walk for the final revelation. At that moment, Father Pio's heart was flooded by a heavenly joy. It was as if all the battles, sufferings, and challenges he faced throughout his life had been rewarded with this divine confirmation. From the beginning of his journey, he always knew that he was in God's hands, but now, before the Virgin Mary herself, all her mission and sacrifice gained a new and deep meaning. Mary's presence was proof that every drop of blood, every tear, and every silent prayer had been heard in heaven. With a serene calm, Padre Pio got up, feeling both the weight of responsibility and divine grace. He followed the Virgin Mary, who guided him softly out of his room. As they walked through the corridors of the monastery, Padre Pio realized something remarkable. Time seemed to have stopped. There was no more movement, there was no more sound, as if the monastery itself was suspended in another dimension, where only he and the Holy Mother existed. It was as if the outside world could not interfere at that sacred moment. The feeling of being out of time. The feeling of being in a space beyond time was overwhelming. Everything around was wrapped in supernatural peace. Father Pio felt that every step beside Mary was like walking on sacred soil. From the soft light surrounding them to the absolute silence of the corridors, it was indicated that they were approaching something great. Time was no longer a barrier. Now they existed in the divine plane, a place where the past, the present, and the future fired. They arrived at the chapel of the monastery, a deeply sacred and familiar place for Padre Pio. There, he had spent countless hours in prayer, in intimate communion with God. However, this time Maria did not stop at the altar. She guided him beyond visible space, for something he had never noticed before. The secret room. Mary led him to a hidden door behind the altar. Father Pio, who knew the chapel like no one else, had never seen this door. Upon opening herself, she revealed a mysterious room, a place impregnated with deep mystery and wisdom. Father Pio was astonished at what he found there. The room was full of documents, old maps, and enigmatic artifacts, all containing secrets that seemed to have been stored for centuries, protected from the eyes of the world. The light that filled the environment did not come from any earthly source, but seemed to radiate from the heavenly brightness of Mary's presence. It was then that she turned to him and, with a serene expression, said, "This is the place of revelations." His words carried a deep weight. Father Pio knew he was facing something extraordinary, something few would never witness. Mary continued, "Here are the secrets that the world has chosen to ignore or prefer to see. This is the place where the truths that have been hidden or distorted over time by those who manipulated history for their own interests have been revealed." Father Pio was stunned. He did not know why Mary had brought him to this mysterious place, nor what he should do with these revelations. However, it was certain that he was about to witness something that would forever transform his understanding of faith and truth. The revelation of the secret gospel. Within that secret room, something extraordinary happened. Mary took an ancient manuscript and handed him to Father Pio. It was the secret Gospel of John, the oldest of all the Gospels. Written by the apostle who rested his head on Jesus' chest during the Last Supper, this sacred manuscript contained words that had never been revealed to the world. When holding that manuscript, Padre Pio felt the weight spiritual of the moment. He knew he was facing a very few revelation, or perhaps no other, had the honor of knowing. This gospel contained teachings of Jesus that went beyond the known words, revealing the true heart of the Savior, his infinite wisdom, his deep compassion, and his redemptive mission to all humanity. Maria begins to read the secret gospel. Mary began reading excerpts from this gospel. Her soft voice, full of heavenly authority, echoed through the room, filling the space with an even more intense presence. The words, although familiar to Padre Pio, now acquired a new and deeper meaning. It was as if each sentence was carried with an even more revealing truth, as if Jesus himself was speaking directly to the heart of Father Pio. Mary explained that this gospel revealed the true essence of Jesus. Jesus is the light of the world, she said, and this light shines in darkness, and darkness can never erase it. These words penetrated deeply in Father Pio's soul. He felt the truth of those words like never before. The light of Christ, which he always followed, was now fully shown. It was the confirmation of everything he has always believed, but also a revelation that there was still much more to be understood about Jesus' mission. The divine choice of Padre Pio. While Mary read the gospel, something even more surprising was revealed to Father Pio. Jesus had mentioned his name in the secret gospel. Mary flipped the manuscript and read aloud, "Among you there is one, chosen to carry my stigmas, the one who will be persecuted for me and who will be my faithful friend until the end of time." These words resonated like thunder in the heart and mind of Padre Pio. He was in a state of shock, unable to fully understand what he was hearing. How could Jesus predict his life so accurately? How was a humble monk chosen for such a grand mission? Mary, realizing her reaction, put her hand on her shoulder and said, "Yes, my son, it is you that he speaks. You were chosen from the beginning, before you even born. Jesus knew your journey and, therefore, to you he has granted stigmas as a sign of his union with him. You have been called to be a living sign of Christ's presence in the world." Father Pio, still shaken by the magnitude of revelation, realized that all his life, every moment of suffering, every prayer, every miracle, was intended for a greater purpose. He had been chosen by God to be a divine instrument, a bearer of the light of Christ in the world. Mary looked at Padre Pio with a deep love and said, "Yes, my son, Jesus spoke of you. You were chosen from the beginning to be an instrument of your will, a living sign of your presence in the world." Than physical marks. They are proof of their deep union with the suffering of Christ, and their life of sacrifice and prayer deeply touched the heart of God. Of this pain, making it part of its divine plan. Father Pio, in tears, felt the weight of these words. He, who always lived in humility and service, never sought recognition or glory. And now, at the end of his journey, he found that he had been chosen by Jesus since the beginning of the times. This was the purpose of his life, his divine mission, to carry the stigmas of Christ and be a lighthouse of hope and faith to the world. What if Jesus spoke directly to you today? Now, I ask you, what if Jesus spoke directly to you today? What would he say about your life? Padre Pio had the privilege of listening to this message directly from Mary. And you, what are you doing to hear God's call in your life? We all have a purpose. We are all called to be instruments of your will. You may not yet know what your role is in the divine plane, but be sure, God is talking to you. He calls you every day, in every prayer, in every moment of silence. It is up to us to open the hearts and hear. The final destination. After this extraordinary revelation, the Holy Mother looked at Padre Pio with the tenderness and love of a mother who watches over her son, and said, "Your mission on earth is coming to an end." These words, though farewell, did not bring sadness. On the contrary, they were received as a promise of glory and rest. Mary continued, "Soon you will be in the arms of Jesus, my son. Your sacrifice has been accepted, and now your soul will find eternal rest beside the Savior." Taken by a deep emotion, Padre Pio let the tears roll. They were not tears of pain, but of gratitude for being chosen and sustained by Jesus during his life of struggle and sacrifice. "Thank you, Most Holy Mother, for guiding my steps and showing me the true light," replied Padre Pio, his voice embargoed by emotion. At that moment he felt that his mission was complete. He was no longer afraid of death, for he knew that for him death would not be an end, but a glorious encounter with Christ. Maria then blessed him tenderly. His presence radiated an indescribable peace, a peace that came directly from the heart of God. The light around them shone even stronger, as if the whole sky were celebrating that moment. After vision, Padre Pio, now at peace with himself and his journey, returned to his room. Each step was light, for he knew he would soon be with the Lord. He lay down, closed his eyes, and, with a serene smile, fell asleep to never wake up in this world. His mission was fulfilled, and his spirit was on his way to heaven. This is the story of a man who lived totally delivered to God's will. A man who, through his suffering and faith, showed us the path of perseverance, humility, and love. A reflection on faith. This story teaches us that God's love and compassion are always within our reach, even in the darker moments. Father Pio's life, with his unshakable faith, and his last vision remind us that when we fully trust God, He guides us to the end of our journey to eternal glory. Now I ask you, are you ready to trust God with the same fervor as Father Pio? Are you ready to follow the plan He has for you? Remember that God has a purpose for each of us, a call that brings us closer to Him and our true essence. Are you listening to your call? If this story has touched your heart, leave a comment below, share this video with your friends and family, and don't forget to enjoy. Help us spread this message of faith, love, and hope for the world. In doing so, you are also fulfilling your mission to bring the light of Christ to more people. And remember, God is waiting for you to answer your call. Open your heart and let Him guide His steps. A life of sacrifice and faith. Father Pio is a powerful example of unshakable faith, but it is also an invitation. An invitation for all of us, on our journeys, to seek to be closer and closer to God. His stigmas were a physical manifestation of a life of sacrifice, but also a reminder that suffering, when offered to God, can become a source of redemption. Be as Padre Pio, hug your mission, follow your path with faith, and you will find the peace you are looking for. Subscribe to the channel and enable notifications to continue receiving inspiring stories like this. May the peace and love of Christ always be with you.